Welcome back everyone for Retro Scams, where we're going to go over a Pokemon Leaf Green version. So there are 3 copies here. One of them is fake. I will get into why there are actually 2 different real versions here. So I zoomed in a little bit and kind of pushed them together. You can probably see some of the markings on them. This one up here is the fake one, which based on the labels, you can see the numbers on each of those ones that are stamped into the labels. We have the 2 real versions. They do have differences in them. One of them is the player's choice version, and the other is just the normal version. And we will go over what those differences are in them. But as far as the labels, just kind of looking at these, you can kind of see the fake one. The seal of quality is definitely different looking than normal ones. And then the swirls in the background are not as big and swirly as they are in the real ones. I don't know if there's a better way to describe that or not, but just by looking at it, you probably understand what I'm talking about here. But the most important part of labels on here, so if you look at that one, that has a 12A stamped into it. And that one has a 04 stamped into it. And then the fake one has nothing stamped into it. Now, if you're going around in the wild, like in garage sales or on Facebook Market, and you don't have a real and a fake one to carry around with you to compare against one that you might be picking up, I'd recommend going to a site like Price Charting. They'll actually have pictures on it, which they don't have pictures of the player's choice version. They do have pictures of the normal version. But it'd at least give you something nice to compare against to see if the label looks like a real label or not. But the most important thing on the label is looking for that stamp that's pushed down into them. When it comes to Leaf Green and Fire Red, it's a little tougher to see this on here, but there are these 4 rectangles that you can see through the back of the shell on here, which the fake one does not have those. The fake one is a little more transparent than the real ones also, and you can see it has a bunch of freckles and stuff on there, which the real ones will not have all those little freckles. Then there's also the line of dots that you can see down there in the bottom part. Those will not be in the real ones. Kind of peeled back a little bit there so you can see. Some videos have mentioned before that it's the silver screws are the real ones and other colors are not, but you can see this is a real one here and its screw is not silver. And then just be a little thorough on here. The markings on the back where it has the words and letters and numbers, it's a little thicker on a real one than it is on the fake ones. Now there's some writing in there you can actually see looking through the front part, but we'll get into that when the shells are off, just because it'll be a little easier to see. Now, if you are buying one of these, then hopefully people will allow you to look at the boards on these. Now, these are the parts where you can see them through the front by looking in where the pin connectors are. You can see on this one, it's 2002 Nintendo AGB E0502. This one is 2001 Nintendo AGB E0220. And this one is just Nintendo with a little oval around it, and AGB E0230. And also just note that the official ones will not have these little blobs on them. And one thing there might be questions about is, why aren't there batteries on these? So with the Game Boy Advance, Nintendo started using flash memory to save, so you don't actually need the batteries to save. The other Game Boy Advance games that have batteries for the Pokemon series, that's to keep track of like a day-night cycle, because there are different things that happen in those games based on what time of day it is. And the Game Boy Advance did not have any way of keeping track of time. So if we just set the front for this one up here, you can see down there the AGB BPGE on the biggest chip on here. It's kind of worn down on that chip, but you can just make out that it says those letters on there, on the 3rd row down of text on there. So then we put the front shell on here for this one. Then on the biggest chip right here, you can actually make out those letters that are on the front of that. So it has the AGB BPGE. And on this fake one, it's a little faded on the chips, but it doesn't say any of those letters anywhere. So if you are able to pop off the front and look at these chips on here, just make sure it's one of the most important things. On the biggest chip on these, look for that code that's on the front of the label. You will notice there's also things like these little gold squares that are on here and just all sorts of other capacitors and resistors that are just throughout the board. When this one just has all of them like up here in the corner. Then if we take these out and flip them over, you can kind of see on here what you could see from the back of the shell looking through. You had these 4 rectangles up here on the real ones. And then the fake ones, you have like all these gold freckles, plus just this line of extremely shiny gold through here. And then this fake actually seems to have this part correct. So the front shells all have an F right here in a square. Even the fake one has it. And then this rectangle on each of them says ABS, which the fake one has that one too. And then this other rectangle on each of these is like number equals number, which surprisingly the fake one has that. There are quite a few of the counterfeits that do not go to that type of detail on the shells, but this specific one actually did. But the fake one is missing this little section in the front shell. Then if you go to the back shells, this little square in the corner says B in it. And then this rectangle up here says ABS. And then the smaller rectangle has number equals number again. However, the fake ones do not have these little parts that hold the board in place. And they're also missing this little circle right here. Now, a lot of the stuff, as far as the shells are concerned, that's more of just kind of extra difference spotting. The most important things for spotting the difference are based on what you see on the front and back of the board, and then also that stamp on the front label. But now for the most important part of all this. There are a lot of people that buy these fakes. The counterfeits are also called reproductions at some places. And people will buy them just because they want to play the games. So let's see how this game is handled, the fake one versus the real, in a few different situations. So when it comes to testing these, the fake one is going to be in the Game Boy Advance SP, and the real one will be in the Game Boy Macro. If you're unfamiliar with Game Boy Macros, I'll actually be making a video to show how to make one of these coming soon, but if you have a Nintendo DS where like the top hinge is broken off, or you just think one of these looks cool or something, then you can actually turn a DS Lite into the Game Boy Macro, where it just uses a bottom screen. It's pretty much just a Game Boy Advance player. But the nice thing about it is it's a Game Boy Advance player that has a backlit screen and rechargeable battery. So they're both loaded up, they both have the game on there. So as far as the hardware is concerned, these are the same things, but we won't stop there. We'll try one other thing. We have our GameCube with the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance player on it. So let's see what happens. We are starting with the real one. So the real one, everything looks like it's loading up. You have the music and everything, so definitely working how you would assume it would work. So then we have our little dude that can walk all around on here, and everything is awesome. So then we'll go ahead and change to the other game. Okay, and we have the fake one in here now. And as far as the hardware is concerned, once again, this is the right thing. Fake one's never actually been played, so there's a whole tutorial that has to go through before we can walk around on the map. It's Professor Oak. There we go, we're the little dude walking around again. With our nice little NES on the floor, and an old computer over here. Now, I've not been able to get my hands on the Pokemon box yet, but as soon as I do, that'd be interesting to see if these counterfeits actually work in that. But if there are any other tests you'd like to see, then let me know. I am planning, kind of like what I did with the Game Boy and Game Boy Color ones, actually going to do tests like transferring save files from like between fake and real ones, transferring Pokemon between them, just to kind of see the different types of things that the fake ones can do in comparison to the real ones. Because with the Game Boy, we actually found out that some of the fake ones do not work in Pokemon Stadium at all. So if you have any questions about this, then let me know. And if you enjoy this kind of stuff, or enjoy any other retro-related videos like repairing systems and customizing them, then please make sure to subscribe, leave a thumbs up to help the algorithm. I want to thank you for watching. Have a nice day.